Well, you get to about 9 minutes through this recording on favoritism, and you realize suddenly why the crucifixion is stuck at the end of that story of Jesus. The writer is saying to you, look, this man Jesus is not holding you in contempt because he has the words of God in him. He has suffered as you suffer. And this part of the story is speaking for God too. He suffers every suffering you have here in this world of uncertainty, because he's in you and dwells in you, loves you. If they do it to you, they do it to him. And he's allowing them to do it to you and to him because it brings you to life eternal, fullness of life. Instead of remaining in the poverty of the absence of such forever. Be reasonable. Perhaps, just perhaps, I say in a world of uncertainty, that this is why the crucifixion is there. That those that suffer, all who suffer, and all do suffer, and have in this world of uncertainty, that they do not suffer alone, that the one who loves them, God. And of course the Jesus religion sees Jesus as God. But I think Jesus is just saying, no, I suffer with you. I've come to bless you and tell you the words of God, that he's your dad. But I'm not coming as some elitist, superior being, accepting that I have these words, of course, for you, a great blessing, but I suffer with you. And if that picture of this lovely, wonderful person suffering crucifixion doesn't touch your heart, my God, where are you? But it does touch your heart. You may, like my mum, reject the religion as rubbish, and my dad. But your heart is with, especially a good man that suffers unjustly. That's not right. And your love goes out to him, your compassion. And that helps to bring you to hear truly the Jesus story compared to the Christian religion. Look, the Christian religion's not all bad, but it's certainly a mix of good and evil. And I'm not saying that Jesus' story hasn't been tampered with. It's not meant to be perfect. It's meant simply to be sufficient. Well, more than sufficient. Because that which is sufficient to bring you life eternal is fantastically wonderful. But don't worship the story. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Have no other God before Him. And even your neighbour that rescues you, love him as yourself, not before God. Are you with me? Bless you. Thank you, Dad. Oh yes, I may have done much criticism of religion and Christianity included. But that doesn't mean to say I don't see the good in it. My goodness. I went in the church and straight through it and out the other door, you know? I mean, where do you turn in a secular world if you want something spiritual? Well, in the New Age you may turn to New Ageism, but there's enough of religion around to have kept the notion of the possibility, the conceivability of God. And it's still the case that people who are truly searching, well, first thing you do is go into your local temple or ask the man who's supposed to be an expert, the priest, the minister, the preacher man, or the Christian you know, or the religious person you know. Of course, you may have been persuaded against doing such, so you go for something else that might hold forth as possibility. You go for all the New Age stuff, which is also a form of religion. It sort of touches much on belief in the supernatural, or would it be more fair to say beyond the physical? And well, that's not too alien to us. I mean, thought doesn't look very physical, does it? Emotions don't seem very physical. They have physical consequences, of course. Values are not physical, but you're telling me that the secular person doesn't have values? Of course he does. You know, you couldn't be civilized without values. You couldn't really be what we recognize as human. You'd just be what we disparagingly dismiss as animal man. Animal, not man, not human at all. We have a contempt for not having values. I mean, political correctness is to, in some sense, fill the void created by dismissing religion, but still keeping ethics and values, because they're very important from the point of view of society functioning in, well, society existing, really, at all. Society is value structure. Or at least very dependent on such for society to exist. Yeah. It's absurd to praise religion as being right when it's manifestly got so many faults. But it's got much good as well, of course. This world is this extraordinary, I was going to say blend, but I'm not sure if that's quite the right word, of good and evil, that you may come to understand what is good and what is evil, and therefore gravitate to the good and reject what is evil. That's why we're here. as I understand it. How do you understand it? Because how you understand it is foundational to the way you live and your well-being and happiness that follows accordingly. So you want to get it right. Bless you. Thank you, Dad. Well, in what sense is the crucifixion story stuck at the end of the story? In the sense that when you're dealing with the only prayer we have, and it's chronologically, well, it's the next step is the crucifixion. And there's no mention of it in John 17. The nearest is, and now I come to thee. But these are still in the world. I pray for them. And of course, simplistically, who is writing down what Jesus says? The whole point about miraculous stories is that they're miraculous. And it's that which tells you it's a story. But a story isn't just a story. It has purpose. And Scripture has noble purpose. And the theme of the suffering hero goes back a long way in the history, or the historicity of the Middle East. In fact, the entire story of Jesus is much, much older than the Jesus story. But the notion of God being your heavenly dad has never had such a telling before or since. Neither has one story drawn together from so many different sources into such a rendering. It outstrips all the mystery cults, even that of Mithra, from the point of view, our point of view. Because our point of view has been so fashioned by this story. Thank you, Dad.